Welcome to this World Satsanga held on the 30th of October 2021 in conjunction with Kevin Moore and The Moore Show. And Kevin is continuing to produce lots more information, lots more docu-series referencing different channeling and different people who channel. And it's worthwhile going onto his YouTube site, his YouTube channel, to see what's there. And Kevin's been very, very busy, and he's going to be more involved with the World Satsanga again, specifically when we're going to be video-based as of January 2022. So look out for the links on the website, the blog and the website, and also from those people who receive it via email. Of course, I'll probably be limited to the number of people who can dial in, and certainly I'll be limited to around 40-45 minutes. So the lecture and meditation will be added on to the broadcast, not the live broadcast. Okay, so the live broadcast will be basically questions from people via the Zoom messenger rather than being dialed in or should we say emailed in as normal. So my hope is that the number of questions I've got, which the number of questions I've got right now, are going to cover me for both October and November. So I've got, whereas I was having a few or lacking in a few questions last month in September, I've now got a plethora of questions, which is fantastic. It's always feast and famine with this work. So the agenda today is to go through understanding why we fear death, and I'll talk about that and what the reasons are behind that. Then we've got the questions. We'll see how long we can go through the questions. And then we've got a meditation to help us to connect with intelligences that are outside of the area or local area of the Earth, whether it being frequential or geo-universally located. Okay, so let's have a look at this lecture about why we fear death. Well, the fear of death is something which is talked about a lot with lots and lots of different religions, and specifically those who look at the Hindu religion and the Buddhist religion will understand that there's a lot of information there that purports to explain that there is no such thing as death. There is only the demise of the human vehicle, which is basically, as I just described it, a vehicle for us to use whilst we are experiencing the low frequencies associated with the physical universe, the lowest frequencies within the multiverse, which gives us a significant boost in our evolutionary content, or the ability for ourselves to accrue evolutionary content. But nevertheless, a function of being here does create a little problem. Now, that problem is that in effect we enter into a frequential state where we need to be able to interact with it in a way that is coincidental or concurrent with the frequencies that are here. So that means we need to associate ourselves with a body of energy that is of the same frequential level. In this instance, it's a vehicle that we call the human body. It doesn't need to be the human body. It could be other bodies that are of the same frequency associated with other frequencies surrounding the physical universe, anywhere within the physical universe. But it's just that the human body is used primarily on Earth, and the human body is something we use to enable us to experience individualized free will, whilst also experiencing the lowest frequencies available to us in the multiversal environment. So as a function of that, when we come down to the lower frequencies, we start to lose the connectivity with our true energetic self, that larger part of us, which we sometimes call the oversoul in Dolores Cannon speak, or the higher self in standard spiritual speak, or the Godhead in Hindu texts, simply because we are a lower frequency, and so our communicative bandwidth disappears as a result of it. It's a little bit like trying to communicate with each other by flags or fire messages that we used to in the medieval days, when the higher self is communicating on the fastest computer in the world and it can access all of the internet in the world instantaneously and understand it instantaneously. So we start to become disassociated from what we are simply because our connectivity is reduced significantly. And when we reduce, our connectivity is reduced significantly, we start, the sentience that is projected from our higher self starts to associate itself with this environment, and that environment for it is the vehicle that it is part of, that it is integrated with, albeit for a temporary period. So we come to a point when we're about, well, any age from 0 to 7, where we sort of in and out of the body, so to speak. But around 7, we've totally integrated fully with the body. But in that period of time, the sentience that's there is totally associated itself with the body, rather than what it's supposed to be, which is a smaller aspect of sentience and energy. And that sentience and energy is experiencing an environment on behalf of the larger body of sentience and energy. So we get something called the ego being created, and the ego is a function of, shall we say, sentience that creates its own personality as a result of the immersion within the association, within the human form. And that ego, that temporary personality, grows and grows in dominance over the years. But the ego itself, or the temporary personality, understands that it is only in existence, although it's never lost. I mean, everything that is experienced, learnt, and creates evolution is also absorbed by the true energetic self automatically. So the aspect of personality that is the ego, that's a function of us being here temporarily, is never lost, but it is absorbed into the overall, should we say, personality of what we are, our spiritual or our evolutionary personality, or what's a better way of saying it? I think personality is probably good at the moment. So think of it as like a signature, okay? And so it becomes a small part. It's like a drop in the ocean compared to the ocean. So the ego fears the demise of the physical form, and it becomes a function of its desire to maintain the physical form. So the physical form and the longevity of the human form become a function of the ego's desire to maintain its dominance or its existence. So it knows that the physical form is a goalpost that it has to work with to enable it to continue its existence. On top of that, if we start to work on ourselves from a spiritual perspective, we start to increase our frequency, we start to increase our communicative bandwidth, we start to be able to communicate with that which we really are. That also dissolves, or should I say, reduces the dominant factor of that particular temporary personality that's created. So the ego also fears that. So it doesn't want us to become spiritualized. It doesn't want the physical form to demise. And so it creates a whole load of fear around, one, the unknown, and two, the longevity of the human form. So that's why we experience fear. We experience fear of the human form demising. We experience fear of being disconnected from the human form, even though our consciousness, so to speak, or our sentience continues to exist. So there becomes an irrational thought process and an irrational belief system surrounding it that is perpetuated by the ego to maintain its dominance. And all of these things sort of together, fear of the unknown, fear of disconnection, fear of the demise of the human form, are all part of the ego's way of controlling our ability to progress or hold us back, so it can continue its existence. So that's why we fear death. We fear death because it's not us that's fearing it, or our true energetic self, or the aspect of sentience that's integrated within the human form that fears death. It wants to go back to its normal frequential state and integrated state with its true energetic self. It doesn't want to get involved with staying here for as long as it needs to. So it is the ego that makes us want to fear the demise of the human form. That it classifies it as death, because it really what it's doing is it's classifying its lack of dominance as death. Again, it becomes part of a huge memory set, or part of a huge signature or personality set that is the overall function of the true energetic self, or Godhead, or Oversoul, or higher self, and not just a little bit of sentience that's in the human form right now. So that's why we fear death. It's basically a function of our egos not wanting to lose dominance over that which we really are. It wants to control who and what we are. It wants to stay in control of the human form. It wants to stop us from becoming more spiritualized, because it understands that becoming spiritualized raises our frequencies and starts us, our sentience, becoming associated with who and what we are properly. And as a function of that, we become aware and awake, and we start to function in the way associated with what we really are, rather than this temporary personality that's created through incarnation. Okay, so I hope that explains it. There is one thing you need to understand. Why would you want to fear something? We never fear going home, do we? We never fear being home, being cozy in our home. So why would we fear going home to our normal frequential state? And lots of the true religions all say this. They all say that you're just returning back to your father, or your father. Okay, you could classify it as being the source or God, but really your father, your sort of immediate father, so to speak, or your immediate main body of sentience and energy is your true energetic self, your Godhead, your Oversoul, your higher self. Okay, well, I hope that helps us understand that there should be no fear of the demise of the human form. It should be a joyful release and an excitement surrounding movement back into the energetic. Should be what we should be experiencing, rather than fear of moving back into the energetic. Okay, well, I've got lots and lots of questions here, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to get through them all before we have to go through meditation. So those of you who submitted questions and they haven't been answered in this particular satsanga, don't worry. I'm going to do them in November, and they will be prioritised to November. Okay, and I do believe there were some questions that were submitted for last time in September, but for some strange reason I lost them. But they've been resent to me now, so I apologise to DC for that. Okay, so first question here, and there's a bit of a preamble first. The information you have provided in your books and lectures, for example, The History of God, The Origin Speaks, etc., seems new information never before released. On meditation, this seems to be true, and that the information you provide is new information that's not been revealed before, or if it has been revealed, there are only a few in the spiritual or non-physical realms to have been exposed or know about this information. Well, the answer is yes. And there's some questions pertaining to this, so I shan't answer the question right now. Is it true that for the most part this information is newly revealed information for us? I would say that it is. There's a vast majority of it is new, but there's also an interesting link into known information. For instance, the Hindu yogis know about some of the information. The Buddhists know about some of the information, and it's even some of the information is even in the Bible. And not having read any of these documents, I will do later because I've got to for another book. But what I would suggest is that some of this information is always there. It's just that sometimes it gets forgotten, and that some of the information is presented to us in a way which is consistent with our current understanding, our current educational level, our current expansive capacity. So my feeling is that, having seen one or two things from old Hindu texts, like for instance Yogi Ramachakara, and even Paramahansa Yogananda, after writing the History of God, I've sort of come to realise that there are areas where my information is new, and there's some areas where it's absolutely a different understanding of that which has gone before. And the way it's gone before was explained in old educational levels and old language. So I'm just meditating on what the percentage of my stuff is in terms of newness. They're saying 95%. Okay, I've no doubt there's other stuff that is going to be more crossover later, but 95% I'm being told here of what I've been talking about is what I've channeled is new, specifically the depth of knowledge and the understanding. And they're saying, just look at the An dialogues. They're saying Okay, yeah. What they're saying is that some of the 5% or so, maybe 7%, I've just been told here, that is channeled, is using, specifically with the Andialogues, is using known subject headings. So we understand a little bit about the subject heading, but the information contained within the subject heading is deeper and wider, and gives a completely different understanding. So they're saying that would elevate it to 7%, because some of the subject headings are similar to those things that are already out there, but the information is a different level and depth. And also, we have to understand that sometimes how we understand these things is based upon a different level of teacher. A teacher can only take us to a certain level, and then we need another teacher to take us to the next level, and another teacher to take us to the next level. So as somebody who's helping the metaphysical or spiritual population of the earth become more aware and awake and advanced and expansive, I've potentially come on the shoulders of others. I mean, I know that Dolores Cannon support me an awful lot. I was really interested in the work I was doing and what I was channeling, and saw it as important. But there are going to be people after me who take it even further, and that's guaranteed. So those people as well will probably work with what will become known subject matters, and those subject matters will be basically again expanded upon, and I'll welcome it. I totally welcome it. Okay. So the next question is, what has been the response? How is this information received by spiritual beings in the spiritual non-physical realm as a result of the information recently received? I was told a number of years ago, probably 9 years ago, from somebody who's also sensitive and can communicate with different entities, that the information I was bringing forwards, and that some of the teachings I was bringing forwards, shouldn't really be happening now. It was something for later, but it was interesting that it was coming now. So from the energetic side of things, I've got a lot of support. So I'm humbled and honoured with that. So it's good. Next question: is there a spiritual solution for robocall and scam artists who are attacking the economy and innocent people like pesky mosquitoes? No, you just got to ignore them. You just got to ignore them basically, and just realise that it's part of being here, and ignore it. Distance yourself from it. Distance yourself from it. Don't let it affect you. That's the most important thing. Okay, because it could be a little bit of a way of maintaining your low frequency, or one's low frequency, by being associated with it, or being affected by it, or being annoyed by it. That's the thing to do. Is avoid being annoyed by it, and just consider it as being part of the background. Okay. Next question: what is our best approach for improving the leadership on this planet? What are some of the things, techniques, strategies, etc. that we can do to help those in leadership positions to be more effective and efficient and less corrupted by the energies, love, wisdom, prayer, joy, and money? We can only lead by example. People in leadership positions have usually got there because human beings have put them there, and that includes spiritual leaders. It's and some of them are good, and some of them are bad, some of them are pure, some of them aren't, and some of them get corrupted by the level that they're at, and this is quite this is karma basically. So the only thing we can do as individuals is to illustrate to these people, just by the way we live, by the way we think, behave and act, that maybe the way that they're leading isn't consistent with somebody who should be in the position that they're in. And so when people who are behaving themselves and doing things correctly, like following the rules and regulations that we put before us, like not undertaking on a motorway where it only allows you to overtake on the right hand side, for instance. We don't have freeways in the UK yet, although I've seen plenty of freeway behaviour. or the crossings where you have to wait for the light to turn to green before you can cross. People cross when it's red, and I've done the same thing. But if you think about it, all of this is part of the overall erosion of our ability to follow the rules and regulations that we've agreed to work with. So really, if we can lead by example by following those rules and regulations that we accepted and we think are important for an advanced civilization, then those around us will also follow it, and they'll eventually go up the tree to the leaders as well. So they will also follow the rules and regulations that they're supposed to be creating, and they're supposed to be the leaders of, and they're supposed to be the people who are broadcasting it, and therefore showing, shall we say, from leadership from the top that we should be following them. Okay, so all we can do is just be the model citizen, be the model spiritual individual. Okay. Next question. What is the best way to get evidence that we are connected to source, to the origin, to Om? Well, Om is the base resonant frequency of everything, part of the origin. Okay. What I mean by this is, how do we actually connect to the higher realms and not the ego? Meditation. The only way to really understand what it's like to be connected to the source is to connect to it. We can't, I'll use my proper English here, we can't really understand it unless we experience it ourselves. If we don't experience it ourselves, it's a belief system. If we experience it ourselves, it's an experiential experience that creates a knowledge-based system rather than a belief-based system. Now, clearly, belief also adds into knowledge, but unless you're doing it yourself, it stays as belief rather than experience. So the only thing to do is meditate. Use things like Kriya Yoga, use my traversing the frequencies. But whatever you do, keep yourself high frequency, and then you'll be able to connect with Source. And you'll know the difference. You know when you're connected to Source. It's the most amazing thing you've ever experienced ever. And it's so expansive, it's unbelievable. But don't take my word for it. Meditate. That's the only way to do it. And dedicate it in your meditation. And don't get pulled into things that are low frequency, like gossip or receiving stolen goods, for instance. Even if somebody says that they're okay, if you feel it's not okay, don't buy it. Or participating in character assassinations, those sorts of things. Don't keep away from all that sort of stuff. Stay high frequency, meditate, keep good company. And that means you stay with you only communicate with people who are higher frequency and who want to also progress themselves and become connected themselves. And it's not a competition, by the way. Getting to be connected to Source before somebody else isn't a competition. It's an honor to be connected, and if you're connected, then you can help others. Not say that you've got there first, you've climbed the mountain first. Okay, so that's it. Meditate and meditate and meditate. Next question: do our guides have a good sense of humour? What's the best way to communicate with our guides? Meditate. And they do have a sense of humour, actually. I mean, it's not limited to being on the earth. It's not limited to being in the physical environment or any of the in the physical vehicles that we can interact with to experience the low frequencies of the physical universe. It's part of who and what we are. We are and do experience a level of humour. It's probably more profound. In fact, I think, if I'm being told, it is more profound and more deep, although there's the level of detachment as well from whilst we're in the higher frequencies, which we are normally residing within our true energetic self, or Godhead or Oversoul. Okay, good. Right, so we've got some questions there from JRH, and there's a bunch of questions here. I think there's two sets of questions I've just added together to make one set. Okay. First question: if you Google vegetables as being colour coded, white is the immunity family, red is good for the heart, and so on. There are many charts to show this. I wonder if you had any insight into people's eye colours in similar fashion. Like, are blue-eyed people more connected to their throat chakra, or green-eyed in tune to their heart or heart-based decision making, etc.? Just having a quick meditation. I know there was a legend, and there's still a bit of a legend, a bit of a sort of a metaphysical thing, that the blue-eyed people are more gifted than others, and are looked after and preferred than other people with brown or black eyes, or green eyes, or hazel eyes. Mine are hazel, by the way. Now, I'm just being told the function of the eye colour is simply a product of the genome that you're part of. If you look at Afro-Caribbeans and Asians, their genome is particularly associated with brown eyes. So it is definitely associated with their genome, without doubt. But there's no spiritual connection. But the only thing I'm being told here is that people with blue eyes were quite rare in the past, and so they were considered to be revered as a result of it. And I'm being told that Jesus had blue eyes as well, so that might be another reason why people think that people with blue eyes are special, that they're christened sort of from birth. But other than that, I'm just seeing that there's no association with it at all. It's just a product of the genome associated with the strain of the physical form, its frequency that it was introduced onto the Earth in, and even the location it initially was used on, or the planet it was initially used on before it was transplanted onto the Earth. Okay, right. Next question. I watched a show where a man used a dowsing rod to reveal the energy wall of Stonehenge. He asked it questions and it would reveal things. In a similar fashion, are there known devices or technologies that can reveal answers to yes or no questions, or are those unreliable? Tarot card readings, pendulum readings, crystals, hangs from a rope and is held over an answer board, etc., etc. Yeah, there's I mean, really, there's all sorts of stuff. There's tea leaves, there's bones. There's all sorts of these different things that people have used in the past as mediums, so to speak, as a connective medium between themselves and the energetic, to try to gain answers from their true energetic selves, their higher selves, their higher selves, or their oversoul, or even just the what we call the cosmic consciousness, which is obviously source. So based upon that, it's just a way of us connecting. We don't need to have them, because we can connect with anything by using our intention. But things like cards, crystals, pendulums, dowsing rods, etc. They're just a way of connecting in a very, very limited way with other levels of knowledge, entities, etc., that are in higher frequency. And I can remember a long time ago, probably 2012, we had an event that my publisher did in London. It was the Transformation Conference, but held in London rather than in the US. And one of the ladies there is a very, very experienced dowser, and she got these copper rods in a copper tube as well. So, and I saw these, and I grabbed hold of them, and I thought, I wonder if I can influence these. And I was influencing them to the point where they were just rotating, and I could make them rotate in a direction. And the lady who was there just said, "Stop messing with my rods. You'll stop them from being pure conductors." And I thought, that's an interesting comment. So I gave them back to her. So you have to be careful with these things, because sometimes you can influence the outcome based upon your own desires as well. So based upon that, they're not particularly accurate unless you allow yourself to be completely empty of influence of what the answer is going to be. Okay, if you have a desire for a certain answer, then you'll get the answer you want, because you're directing those particular devices, pendulums or dowsing rods or cards, to give you the answer that you want. Okay. Next question: is meditation the only way to increase your sentient weight? Sentient weight is like sentient quality. It's like a volume, or like a way of saying you've got a lot more in the space, so to speak. Or are there crystals or metals the Egyptians were wearing, stones and gold, that can assist, or even, do you know of any plants? Sentient weight is gained through experiential and evolutionary progression. That's the only way one can create sentient weight. And so density of sentience, you want to call it that, is a function of evolutionary progression. So meditation is probably the only way, from what I can gather. There's no physical means, just meditation. Okay. Next question. Since there are parallels of everything, does that mean that there is also a universe where source, entity, and origin are malevolent? Like the dark twin brother type of scenario? No. And the answer to that, and why it's no, is because parallelism is a function of the creation of a particular entity or entities, and not that entity itself. If that entity is the creator of the environment that creates the potential for parallelism. So, for instance, there wouldn't be any variance of origin sentience or variance of source entity sentience, because the sources are compartmentalized within the origin, and the origin is the sentience associated with the structure that it currently works with, the dominance. There isn't, and event space doesn't allow parallelism outside of the radar diameter or sphere of influence of those higher levels of sentience, because it doesn't create an evolutionary potential. The evolutionary potential is done through depth of experience, and that's done at the sort of the very minute levels where parallelism is allowed or is created by event space, and not bigger. So that's a very good question, and I'm very pleased. Actually, very pleased it's been asked actually. But it's not something that is a function of event space. Okay. Why did the pre-origin sentience event space push so hard for the origin to become? Why did it feel it was imperative at the risk of destroying itself? Well, it didn't destroy itself. It just reduced its dominance as the dominant sentient in this instance being, wouldn't it? So what it did realise, though, is that for the overall sentience that is being born through so-called Darwinian evolution, via energies grouping together and going down the evolutionary the road to evolution, it recognised that it could never achieve that which another sentience could achieve. So it's a bit like, why would you not allow something bigger to be created in lieu of yourself? If you when we're on our own, we are individuals, and we have limitations based upon our capacity. Whereas if we join together, or we allow somebody else to do something for us, for example, like build a house, not many of us can build our own houses, but if we join together with a housing community where we all work together to build a house, and each of us have got skills that allow those houses to be built, we become better. When we build the houses, we build the estate. If we can't do something like plumbing or plastering or electrical work or tiling, then we get somebody in who can. So it's a bit like that. It's a bit, very basically, it's a bit like that. It's a bit like the sentience that was source, that was the origin. Sorry, the sentience that was the event space. I'll get it right in a moment. Knew that it couldn't become a level of sentience that it had seen the potential for if it stayed in dominance. So that's why it chose to reduce its own level of sentience down to a higher level of intelligence rather than sentience, to allow the origin to become. It knew that was the way forwards, the best way for a progressive level of evolution to be achieved was to allow this particular sentience to become the dominant sentience, and how it would create the possibility of multiple smaller versions of sentience to allow the accrual, the accelerated accrual of evolution as well. It knew that this other sentience would do that, and it wasn't capable itself. So it's a bit like us not being able to fix a plumbing problem. We get a plumber in. It's the same sort of thing. Okay, and it's got some questions here. We're just looking at the timing. Okay. So next questions from US. I think these have also come from another direction as well. So if one of the previous questioners recognises these as their questions, then then that's where it's come from. Because I think these have been, although they come from US, the lady who translates or transcribes the World Satsanga, and we're going to work together to create a book called The World Satsanga, the first 10 years, because at the end of this year is 10 years, which is a phenomenal thing to think about. Then if you see these, they see this as yours rather than US's questions, and that's fine. How is it that the source and origin have all this no addictions, yet seem very addicted to incarnation and voyeurism? The source entity isn't addicted, nor is the origin addicted to incarnation. It's just as us, as smaller individualized units or aspects of sentience from our true energetic self, which is a smaller unit of sentience from the source, which is a smaller individualized unit of sentience from the origin, recognize that the only way to accelerate our evolution is to experience every aspect of the environment that's created within the source. So that means all the frequencies and all of the environments that could be created by these frequencies. So we desire to experience all of this stuff in the ways that we're doing it, and we're all doing it in different ways. And so we sometimes get addicted to it because of our desire for certain, shall we say, sensory pleasures or mental pleasures, such as being in power or being leaders or have control over others, or for instance, bodily pleasures, the imbibing of alcohol, drugs, food, smoking, and physical pleasures such as sex, those sorts of things. But we eventually do detach from them and become, as we sort of master the process of becoming incarnate, and we come down, do our jobs, and leave, and we don't get addicted to it or desire to stay longer than we need to. So it's really us that is working with the incarnation, not particularly source. This is just us, as a couple of steps down from source, trying to experience source in the best way we can do to help source evolve. Okay, next question. Since we're all God, how is God not hurting itself, like how we see a cutter cutting themselves by doing all this incarnation in blood and death? So people cut themselves or damage themselves or injure themselves. Source is too far up the frequencies to absolutely experience everything that everybody's doing, because it's a bit like us understanding the damage that a cell's having, or feeling what a cell feels when its particular life has ended, or atoms clashing. We can't feel atoms clashing in our body. We can't feel cells dying and being reproduced in our body. So it's a bit like that. So in terms of us as smaller individualized units of sentience, whilst incarnate, doing all sorts of things to help ourselves get through it, or sometimes ask for help, which is what people who damage themselves or harm themselves are looking for. They're asking for help to move over a certain mental problem, or even physical problem that's causing mental problems. Then, although it's experienced by us as a small unit of sentience, in our experiencing it, source has experienced it. And so the cells that die, or the cells that get damaged by each other, or the cells that are fighting viruses or diseases get damaged, they sort of experience it, but us as the body itself doesn't experience it either, because it's so low down in the structural levels. Okay, so they're experiencing it on behalf of us, and we're experiencing these things on behalf of source, and therefore source experiences it. Next question. If origin can make all the source entities free of karma and high frequency beings, why not make us all like that? Because the origin and the source are not a function of karma, because they're not associated with the low frequencies of the physical universe. They are. It is part of them, but they are not within it. We are within it. The physical universe is an environment within the multiverse, I should say. So, based upon that, it is up to us to experience the ability to detach from wanting to go back into, or experiencing certain thoughts, behaviours and actions, levels of power, etc., etc., that you don't have in the energetic. So we have decided to experience these things, and we have decided to work out ourselves how to enter into these environments and not get addicted to them or attached to them, which is karma. Okay, so it's us. We've decided to do it, and we've decided to work out how we can detach from karma. And therefore, when we've been detached from karma, because it's only a function of the physical universe, and same as dharma, which is positive karma. Then once we've done this, once we've mastered it, we no longer need to incarnate, and we don't need to incarnate, therefore, to evolve fast, so we can continue our evolutionary progression in the higher frequencies of the multiverse rather than in the lower frequencies of the physical universe. Okay. Next question. How is it fair that source entity 1 to 12 are created without having to do any of the trials us have to go through? They're going through their own trials, basically. They're doing it in their own way. We are just part of source entity 1, so to speak. It's only source entity 1 because it's the first source entity I talked to. That's right. There's no order of creation associated with the numbers. It's just an order I communicated with, those that were closest to me at the time, as I ventured further and further away from the energies associated with source entity 1. So they are experiencing what they need to experience to evolve, and they're doing their own evolution in their own way. So they're doing things in a different way. They're probably very happy that we're doing things in our way on behalf of source entity 1, and we're probably very happy that they're doing things in their way on behalf of their source entities. So you have to think of it from a higher perspective, is that everything is experiencing what it needs to experience to evolve in the way that it's decided to do it, to diversify the overall experiential condition for sources and origin, and therefore the overall, shall we say, quality of evolution, and therefore the quality of sentience, and therefore the increase in sentient weight, so to speak, or sentient density, if you want to call it that. And the sort of parting comment for these series of questions is, I find this hard to grasp how hypocritical things appear. Is there any other answer other than then, because that's the way it is, or it's the will of God? It's not the way of God, it's the way of us. It's the way we've created it. So we have when we're on earth, we have individualized free will, and that is a major gift. A major gift. So we create our own environment, we create our own experience of the environment through the interaction with the environment and the interaction with others in the environment. And so based upon this, we only have ourselves to blame, if that's the way to think of it, because we are not quite mature enough to be able to ascend past the need to incarnate, or we're not mature enough to ascend past the need to incarnate in the physical universe at its low frequency. Once we start to move up the frequencies, we start to understand, and we start to move up the frequencies quite quickly. Okay, so let's have a look at what we've got here. I think we're going to have too many questions for this Satsanga, so I'm going to go through a couple more from MO, and then we'll use the rest of MOs for November, and then we'll have FNs for November as well. So a combination of MO and FN for November. There might be a few more, of course, between November and December, but I want to clear the decks if I can do, so we can start to operate in the Zoom message mode in January onwards. Okay. So from MO, first question. I think I'll go through half of these. Let's just quickly count how many questions there are to get an idea. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I'm going to go through 5 of these questions, and then we'll leave the rest for the next time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Righty-ho. So first question then. Are we able to dissolve the energetic hooks that we created? What I mean is that it is not nice to create one. And if so, when we realise that which we might have created them to attract attention to others, is it possible to be dissolved by the intention of its creator? Are there some ways we can dissolve our own energetic hooks and heal the damage that we may have caused the other? Yes, I mean, I regularly dissolve energetic hooks between people and between a person and its previous incarnation. It's a regular healing process. But basically, from an individual perspective, if you're not an experienced healer or had lots of experience in understanding that these hooks are there, or these links or lines are there, then it's a bit difficult. But what I would say is this: offer forgiveness first for giving the links or the hooks from the individual who you've given them to, and then also express your sorrow for giving them in the first place, and that helps a long way. But you can also visualize these hooks dissolving within you and dissolving within them as well, and the link, i.e. the connectivity between them, which may look like a line. You know, think of it like you've got a hook, like a fishing line. You've got a fishing line, then a hook, and the one end of the hook, the line is attached to the hook, and the other end of the line is attached to the rod and the reel. So just think of it in terms of, hooks can be connected by something, some line or other, whether it's an energy line, or if you meditate on it and you get some visualizations, it looks like rope or string or something, or electric cable even. Just think of it in terms of a connection between you and somebody else, and that connection is connected in some form of way which keeps connected to them, doesn't fall off. But then visualize these links just disappearing. Just visualize them melting, for instance. Or use your mentally spoken words to say, I'll dissolve this link, and I'll seek forgiveness from the person I linked with for having to put up with or having to experience the link that I didn't need to have the experience of. And you can do these sorts of things, these affirmations, to add to it. Okay, that's the way to remove it. Just visualize them, seek forgiveness, forgive the self, visualize them being dissolved. If you have physical interaction with the individual, just say you're sorry and seek physical forgiveness from them giving you verbal forgiveness, and you give them verbal apologies as well. That also works. Okay, but if they're not in the same room with you or the same country, then all you got to do is meditate on it, visualize or use your mentally spoken word to achieve the dissolving of the link and the removal of the links of the hooks and the links together. Okay. In fact, in the it's the Psycho-Spiritual Healing book, we can see where there are very complicated examples of hooks, and the way of healing or removing those hooks is quite complicated, but that's a different thing altogether. Okay, so that's in the Psycho-Spiritual Healing book as well. Next question. In History of God, page 376, that's accurate, an alien was saying, we wouldn't dream of contaminating our bodies with alcohol, tea, coffee or cigarettes. Does tea contaminate our bodies? Can organic pesticides, herbicides, free tea from also being contaminating? Yeah, coffee and tea and things like marijuana and other stuff are contaminating into the body. Even though they're naturally produced substances, they do have an effect, because they create for instance, caffeine and tannin, they're an acid, aren't they? And they create a state of beingness when we drink it. That's why we drink it. The people get calmed down when they drink coffee, and it's the same with tea. So there's a chemical function that occurs within the human body as a result of imbibing all of these different things. So there's no pesticides or herbicides that can free the tea from being contaminated. It's just that we need to be aware that they are a contaminant of sorts. But also note that some tea aficionados, predominantly in Japan and China, they have really weak tea, because they get the essence of what is in the tea leaf in the liquid, almost like a homeopathic solution way, and therefore any particular benefits associated with them without having the contaminants associated with it. So dilute your tea, dilute your coffee, but you might find it gets to be tasting just like water. But then again, that's the whole point, because that's how homeopathic works. Right, next question is, excuse me to ask you this, but are women's bodies naturally dropped in frequency when they have a period, with their monthly cycle? How about when they are pregnant? I'm wondering if their body's frequencies change as a result of their natural body frequencies or functions. No, they don't drop in frequency. Clearly, there is a predominance of thought surrounding the physical, because you have you're pregnant, you are physically interacting in a way which is specifically to do with reproduction on the physical level. So I would say you drop in frequency. I would say that you probably get more attracted to the physical rather than metaphysical. If that makes any sense. So the way to think of it is in terms of, well, if you're pregnant, then continue your meditations and even communicate with the soul that's going to attach itself to the body, or is in fact already attached to the body that's going to be your baby. So think of it that way, and that way you'll maintain your frequencies, and you'll maintain the increase in frequential level throughout the gestation period. Okay, but you don't lose anything, but you would be distracted by it, by the physical, because you are therefore interacting with the physical in a really profound way. Okay. Next question: How many true energetic selves does the source entity have in total? Is the number constantly changing, or is it a set amount? If the numbers of tests changes, what are the reasons for their increase and or decrease? There are billions of tests, billions and billions and billions, probably trillions of tests. Okay, of different sorts, different qualities of sentience. So, we know those qualities of sentience being those who are now being allowed to incarnate here, called the battlefield people. There's the animals, levels of quality of sentience, and there's also plants' quality of sentience, and there's other minerals' quality of sentience. So there's lots and lots. There's lots of them. There are true energetic souls that have finished their evolutionary cycle, though, and they elect to recommune with Source in the total way, total communion, which means that they lose their individuality totally, and so that would create and does create an overall gradual stream of loss of true energetic selves as they become one with Source totally. So I can't tell you a number, but it's in its trillions, but those numbers are gradually getting smaller as each test finishes its evolutionary cycle. Okay, so next question: What happens to a test if it loses one of its aspects? How does it affect the overall energy and its dominant evolutionary frequency? Tests don't lose their aspects. The aspect is always connected to a cess. So there's no such thing as a stray soul or a lost soul or anything like that. They are always connected to a test. So a test cannot lose one of its aspects. Aspects are either they're maintaining some form of individualized state in between their use as being a way of experiencing things in lower frequencies or within the multiverse, or they enter into some form of communion, or they enter into full communion. So I would guess if one of the aspects decides it wants to enter into full communion, and the test wants those aspects to enter into full communion, it would reduce the number of aspects at that point that a test could project into the physical or the multiverse environment. But the test can then reassign its own sentience and create another 12th aspect, for example. So whilst the test is in the evolutionary cycle, it can always create 12, and each aspect can always quote 12 shards. Okay, so we're never going to lose an aspect. It'll only go back into a state of full communion. Okay, well, that's all the questions I can use now, because we're already at 56 minutes, so it's a long way through. And the rest of the questions I'm going to add into November. So from question number 6 onwards, from Emma's questions, we're going to go into November, and same with FN's questions as well. So there we go. So the next thing to do is go through the meditation today, which is to expand ourselves, or meditate upon the potential to connect with other entities. Now, there's 2 ways of doing this. The first way is an overall general meditation, which I'm going to do now. The second way is to follow the Traversing the Frequencies correspondence courses that are available from the website www.beyondthesource.org, and look for correspondence courses. Or is actually to attend a physical workshop, of which there's very few at the moment for obvious reasons, but we have done some Zoom-based ones in India, and a couple in China as well. So that may be the way forwards for some of the long-distance stuff. Okay, and they've been very successful. We've achieved exactly the same responses, same student capabilities via Zoom as we would have done if we'd have been in a physical workshop, although it's nice to all be in the same physicality as you all. Okay, so let's start this meditation then. So just sit yourself down in your straight backed chair, or if you're sitting on the ground, you can sit in a cross-legged position or some form of half or full lotus if you're that flexible. Whichever way you're doing. If you're sitting in your straight back chair, make sure your feet are flat on the ground, back is straight, neck is straight and aligned with the back, eyes are closed and gently focused on the origin of the spiritual or third eye, which is in between the eyebrows and above the bridge of the nose. And I want you to just relax and just visualize, or use your mentally spoken word if you can't visualize, to achieve the same thing. So we're going to go up in an elevator with me. Okay, we're going to go with me to a certain level. So if you want to use this recording again later, you just use the same recording, which is around the 56th minute mark. And you can use this recording as a method of helping you to go up these frequencies and enter into dialogue. So visualize it in front of you is a lift, and that the lift door is open. And inside the lift is me. So walk inside the lift. You won't need to have any grounding, because I'm going to ground you all anyway. So normally within the Traversing the Frequencies workshops and the Psychic Shield workshop, we have a level of grounding to make sure we come back. But because you're working directly with me on this, I'll provide the grounding medium for you. So everybody comes back to the earth level. So move inside the lift and turn around, let this door close, and you'll find that all around there's lots of other souls, lots of people you've never met before. These are the people who listen to the Satsanga and participate in the meditation. We're all in the same event space. And I'm being told to take us to level 86. Bit of a random number, but that's what I'm being told to take us to. I'm being told it's a very populated universal environment on frequency level 86. So on the right hand side of the lift, there's a lift wall, of course, and on that lift wall is lots of buttons, and each button's got a number, floor level. or a frequency level. We're going to get a frequency level 86, which equals universe level 75. So the lift goes up from 0 to 1, and then 2, then accelerates to 4 and 6 and 8 and 10, accelerates again 15, 20, accelerates again 30, 40, 50, 60, accelerates again to 70 and slows down 75 and 80, slows down again 82, 84, slows down again 85, and finally comes to a standstill at 86. So we've moved up to this level 86, which is the 75th universe, quite quickly. So it's going to stay here to normalise a bit. Okay. Keep open, you keep your mind open, don't preconceive what's here. But where I've taken us to is the absolute dead centre of this particular universal environment. Okay. Within the multiverse. That element of structure which is within the source, that it has individualized from itself to allow smaller aspects of itself to experience itself and evolve, therefore. So I now just open the lift door. As we open the lift door, I provide a little walkway, a gantry if you like, just to go out of the lift, so we can all walk out of the lift. And about 10 metres or 30 feet away from the lift door is a large platform area. So we all walk out of the lift onto the large platform area, and we can just be and use your intention, broadcast your desire to enter into some form of communication or communion with any of the entities or beings on this level. Just ask them who they are, what they're doing, where they're from, what their evolutionary level is, where they're going to, how are they evolving. Broadcast your desire to enter into communion with them. Ask to receive the information in any of the ways that are relevant to you. It can be verbal, so it's clairaudient, visual, clairvoyant, or just knowingness, clairsentience. Or just know that their presence is there, your body tingling, your temperature changing, pressure around the area of the third eye or around the periphery of the skull. Ask for the entities to present themselves in a way that you can interact with them in your primary mode of interaction, which may be any of those I just described, or any combination of them. if you have access to more than one. Ask for everything to be saved in what I'm going to call your energetic memory, so that you don't forget. And stay alert, aware and awake. You're in the center of the 75th universe, which is in the 86th frequency. It's a very, very highly populated area. As I said, don't forget to ask them questions. Ask them to show you things. They can take you to different places if you wish. Don't worry, I'll bring you all back. And know that time doesn't exist. So what feels like a couple of seconds or a few hours is completely different here on Earth. Don't forget to stay alert, aware and awake. Meditation or connecting in this way, channeling if you want to call it that, or projecting the consciousness or the sentience into higher frequential levels is not about falling asleep. It's about being very sharp, very aware, very conscious. Okay, so we'll just stay here for a while longer. Okay, so I'm going to bring you all back to this centralized platform before we go back into the lift. Everybody just suddenly finds themselves back on the platform, and now we all start to walk across the walkway, this 10 meters or 30 feet long walkway that goes from the central platform back into the lift. We're all inside the lift, we all remain grounded. Okay, the walkway retracts back from the platform, goes back into the lift, and I close the door. Okay, so everybody's in the lift with me, and I press the button with the number 0 on to bring us down to the 0 or the earth level. So the lift descends from 86 to 85, 84 and accelerates to 82, and 80 and accelerates again to 75, and 70 and accelerates again to 60, 50, 40, 30, slows down at 20, at 15, and 10, slows down again at 5, and then 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. So we're now back on the earth level. Just stay here a moment to normalize. Just a few seconds. Okay, so I now open the door and you can walk out of the lift. And when you walk out of the lift, look behind you, see the lift there in front of you. And then I dissolve the lift and you're back in the room where you're listening to this Satsanga and this meditation. So slowly come back into the room. Slowly open your eyes, take a drink of water to help ground you further. Okay, and before we leave, we've also got some requests for meditations for November. I'm going to use them in November and December, so there's a couple that might link together to create a combined meditation, and there's one I want to particularly keep as a single meditation on its own. Okay, so the meditations I've got right now I should be using for November and December, and the questions I've got left over from this month, which are half of MOs on all of FNs, are going to be used in November's World Satsanga. Okay, so again, thank you very much for participating. Thank you for listening and being part of meditation. Thanking you for your questions. And don't forget that in January, I nearly said July there, in January we start to go with the Zoom based one, which is basically just going to be the questions, okay, the Zoom based questions rather than sending questions in via email. So it'll give a wider number of population the chance to ask questions. So, Source's love to you all, God's love to you all, if you want to call it God, and Namaste and blessings from myself and I look forward to working with you in November. Namaste. Did you see the aliens in Crete?